Great, thank you very much, and welcome back. I hope you all had a nice lunch. So over the next 40 minutes or so, we're going to be talking about, it's called a new wave of digital, but actually I think it revisits some of the discussion this morning around the ways in which telcos and operators can more closely work with the entertainment industry, particularly in helping content owners and content distributors, perhaps even on a proprietary basis, reach audiences, particularly across fixed and mobile IP-based networks, where we see a lot of the growth going forward. So I think we have a fantastic guest to discuss some of these points in an incredibly interesting market, the market of Indonesia. I'm going to let him introduce him and his company himself. But for the time being, please welcome Prashant Gokarn, who is the Chief Digital Officer for Indosat.
First, I would say good afternoon. I don't know why you guys are here, but I hope you had a good lunch, and at least you can find a nice, comfortable seat to sit on whilst we hear the two of us prattle along. So what I do is as Ed said, I'm the Digital Services Officer, which involves looking at a number of businesses outside the mainstream wireless SMS, wireless voice, and wireless data. So I look at our digital businesses, which has mobile wallet as the main business. I have an e-commerce unit, and I also got a digital marketing arm. In addition, I run our fiber to the home and pay TV business. Indosat is the #2 operator by revenue in Indonesia. We have about 83 million customers, mainly wireless. Our wireline business, as I said, is fiber to the home and pay TV. That's a smaller business, about a year old. The market itself, Indonesia is quite an interesting market, like I guess many of the large markets. It's showing massive growth in terms of online video. For us, mobile video, for example, is about 70% of our traffic.
Wow.
It more than dominates any other genre of that. YouTube is the largest. We also have lots of video consumption on the social networking platforms, on WhatsApp messaging, and on pure play OTT services. Over the last year, we have launched a number of OTT video services, and I hope in the course of the next few minutes I can talk about some of the experience we've had, both good and also less good.
Sure, sure. I mean, 70% is a lot of data attributable to video over your mobile network. You know, I think on fixed networks we see sort of 40 to 60%, depending on where in the world you're talking about, and 55 to 70 odd for mobile networks, with year-on-year growth being almost completely dominated by mobile video data. So I guess one of the things we always wonder about then, or perhaps a network operator would wonder about, is how much of that data is attributable to Indosat video services and how much to third-party video services?
First, we don't make our own videos. So very clear, we have no studio, we have no artistic talent which shoots videos. So all our video is through third-party platforms, some in partnership and some without. So for example, YouTube is an example of the dominant video platform, and we do not necessarily have massive partnerships with YouTube. Today, a year and a half ago, we had something going with YouTube when they were at the stage of helping the market grow and helping us grow. So that is one stage, one category, which is video services which are not necessarily strongly partnered with us.
Sure.
And then the second category are video services like iFlix, where we are strongly partnered. So.
Okay. So, I mean, I guess this brings us on to another very interesting area, which is the entire question of how a network operator works with third-party entertainment providers. There are a number of different, well, I hear it from the horse's mouth, so to speak, but so is there a template for working with Indosat if you're a video service, or how do you structure the deals with which you work with partner
So that is a
services?
good question. I've spent almost all the morning trying to work with or talk to our existing partners and potential future partners on how a win-win partnership between a video producer and a telco could work. So For example, and here, when we have 80 million plus customers, you cannot have a, one size fit all. You'll have to have a model based on which customer segment you want to go after and what the underlying strategic objective is. For example, and I can take a name here, only one name I'll take, which is iFlix, which is a good partner of ours.
Yeah.
So we launched our video bundling plan under what we call a Freedom brand a few months ago. So they wanted to grow their customer base. We wanted to grow our 4G customer base. So there was very strong alignment in terms of what both parties wanted. So we had a hard bundle deal where based on the pricing the customer pays, they get iFlix and they get a data package bundled in with that. So this is one model. So you talked about what works.
Yeah.
So one model is a hard bundled, all you can consume type model.
So this would be buy a subscription with Indosat for 4G, and depending on the tier of service, you may get an iFlix subscription bundled in with that as well.
So I will rephrase that. So you buy a data bundle and you get iFlix with it.
Okay.
It's a single sign-on, so it's very easy customer experience. There's no need to start registering and signing in and creating login names and passwords and so on. You are on Indosat, you get iFlix. What is bundled in is the data package with that deal. So depending on how much you pay, you get, say, 4 GB, 10 GB, 15 GB, 16 GB, depending on how much you pay. So, so this is a hard bundled piece. So there's no incremental payments made for the content partner.
Okay.
So that's included within the package.
Okay.
So this is one model. So this is a model which works well if the video partner wants to grow scale, so wants to have many 100,000 customers.
Yes.
This is the model.
Yeah.
If, on the other hand, this is where, for any partners out there, it has to be very clear what the objective is. If the objective is short-term cash generation, as in you want to be profitable from month one, then a model which was traditionally called classical VAS or value-added services would be the typical model. So you would pay small amounts of money for a weekly pack, or you would pay incremental revenue to that per video viewed or per video downloaded.
Okay.
So that is without much of data bundling, but customers pay small amounts of money and they already have a data package bought independently, and then the money goes to the content provider.
Okay.
So that is on the complete other spectrum of a iFlix type model.
Absolutely.
Which is targeted at a very clearly defined customer segment with clear profit and revenue objectives.
Okay.
And then there are models, of course, in the middle as well.
Okay. I mean, you're hard bundling mobile data with the iFlix subscription. I mean, is it relatively common in Indonesia for people to stream iFlix over a mobile, over a cellular network?
I'll divide that question into two parts.
Okay.
So people watch a lot of video. So I said video is a large proportion of traffic. So there's no education needed anymore to tell customers what video is. So whether they are watching video on WhatsApp or Instagram or Facebook or YouTube, everyone knows what mobile video is. So that part is understood. What is the next stage to understand, which I think will take some time, is a model where you pay a small amount of money and you get all the video bundled in within that.
Yes.
Yeah. So that the SVOD model is still a model which is very popular in certain categories of customers, but in some others, it'll take a little bit longer for them to understand. But so your question was, do customers understand the concept of paying for video? Yes, they do.
Yes, absolutely. So, I mean, just thinking about the SVOD model in Indonesia in general, I mean, of course, as analysts, we look at Netflix audiences mushrooming up all over the world. I mean, of course, in Indonesia, OTT and mobile video consumption is very high. But do you think the Indonesian audience, do you think they have a high propensity to pay for online or mobile video content? I mean, is it a tough sell in the Indonesian market, do you think, for someone like an iFlix?
So I think when you have 250 million people, it's, when you say, will people pay, depends who those people are. So even 5% of 250 million is a large European country. Right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So it's difficult to, I think it's not difficult. It's wrong to broad brush 250 million people and say, will they pay or not pay? Which is where, again, customer segmentation and the analytics behind it becomes quite important. So, for example, if you are a English language broadcaster from the US, then you are targeting Indonesians who have studied in English language schools or studied abroad or have aspirations for the kids to study English and the expat community. So it's not a small market, but it's a market which would be in the range of maybe 1 million to 2 million who are willing to pay a few dollars per month. Now, it's not a massive market when you say compare that to 250 million population. But if you compare that to Singapore, it's a large market. If you're happy doing, selling a service in Singapore, it's a larger market, just looking at that little cream of the top of the pyramid, which you will get in Indonesia. So I think, your question is, are people willing to pay? There are some people very willing to pay. There are 4 Ferrari showrooms in Jakarta, so people obviously can pay a lot of money. Although there are no roads to drive them, people still buy those Ferraris. So people do have reasonable amounts of money, but not everyone does. The average revenue per customer per month is about $2.
Wow.
And the amount every prepaid customer on average, again, averages, we sort of hide lots of statistics, but on average, the average wallet size or amount of money kept in the prepaid balance is $1.
Wow.
So if your monthly billing is $3 a month, and the month comes to an end and the customer is on auto renewal and has only $1 left in the wallet, that auto renewal will fail.
Right.
And many of our partners have not really understood that they say $3 is so cheap, but when you have only $1 in the wallet, even if the customer wants to buy, there's no money in the wallet to buy and it fails. And as per regulation, we can only try an attempt to resubscribe on the customer twice. So the churn, if you look at numbers, they will say the churn is so high, but it's high because the product's not been defined properly.
Okay, very interesting. When I think about a couple of examples from the US market where we've seen mobile network operators really drive what we think are, well, one example where we've seen where mobile operator has driven very, very rapid growth in mobile video consumption over their cellular network. We think about T-Mobile in the USA with Binge On, where they effectively said for 20 partnered video services, we will not charge you, we will not meter the data you use to watch these services over a cellular network. When we think about the upcoming launch of DirecTV Now in the US market, AT&T have said we won't meter your data usage for DirecTV Now over our cellular network. What do you think of this type of strategy?
So I think it's a good idea. So when you try to sell, say, iFlix, how good the service is to everyone, not everyone would want to subscribe to an iFlix service. Maybe they want to see Turkish dramas, or they want to see Korean pop, and who knows? So you would have different people with different interests. So if you can have if an operator can offer a bundle where the data is bundled in and the kind of content the customer chooses 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 of a set of 10, I think it works really quite well. However, there's also a big difference. The average revenue per user per month in the US is $55 a month, right?
Okay.
We are at $2 a month. So obviously, the binge on at 55, you can binge a lot more than you can binge at 2.
Okay. So do you, I guess at some point between $2 a month and $55 a month, there may be a tipping point where such a strategy becomes economically viable for a network operator, I take it. Okay, cool. And
that's right. We have many customers who pay, I won't say numbers here, but they are pretty large, who pay us more than $100 a month. So, So that I
think this segues very neatly as well into, the entire question of either, bundling or integrating the network data or the transport required for entertainment services over IP in general. Obviously, bundling in many parts of the world is the key strategy for operators to sell connectivity and entertainment to the individual, to the household. How does do Indonesians like bundles? Do they buy their services and entertainment in bundles, or is it more of a service-by-service, standalone type of market?
So the market is just evolving. So we were the first to introduce bundles only about 7, 8 months ago.
Okay.
When I talk about bundles, we always had an SMS and a voice bundle. I think it's the first time we've had a SMS, voice, data, and a content bundle. So it's a multi-way bundle.
Sure.
Why telcos have taken a little bit longer to come up with bundles is one, the technical challenges to actually create a bundle is often lost to many people. It's not that easy. And the second is, there will always be some services which are more profitable than others. So in the bundle, how do we put in the loss-making parts to the profit-making parts so that the overall bundle makes money?
Absolutely. Yeah.
And the third is, why do you have a bundle? So do we have a bundle to reduce churn, to take more money from the customer's wallet, or is it for customer acquisitions? And many telcos often are not very clear what they are. And frankly, even for us, we have to figure out exactly why we have why we are pushing a bundle. So it's still early days. Your question is, is it popular? I said it's early days, difficult to say.
Okay, so you mentioned, of course, that it's very important for an operator to determine why they're offering a bundled proposition. What's the appeal to Indosat for selling bundles? Is it for churn reduction, or is it to drive higher ARPUs?
As I said, it's early days, but the way we went into it was to increase ARPU.
Okay.
And also to reduce churn. So when customers buy multiple services from a provider, it's more difficult for them to churn to somebody else. So these are the two drivers, which I think it's too early to say whether we've hit all the objectives.
Okay, and although you guys are predominantly a network operator, I understand that recently you've actually partnered with Indonesia's leading subscription satellite TV service in Indovision. Which obviously takes you straight into, mainstream television as well, an interest in that particular business line. What was it that prompted you guys to start working with Indovision?
So the big benefit of a large telco is we have massive retail presence. So we have about 300,000 points at which Indosat products are bought in the market. So these are small shops where customers can walk in and top up their airtime. And we have a very low-cost model for top-ups.
Yeah.
So this is the main driver between a partnership bundling deal like this one.
Okay.
So how, you could ask Indovision what their drivers were, but I guess it was that for them to go and have cash collections for their Indovision vouchers would be far cheaper if it is bundled in through a mobile operator who has much lower costs and a far greater depth of distribution. And let's not forget, lots of the Indovision customers are in smaller towns and villages where the cost of setting up new distribution is really, really very high.
Okay. And how do you see, do you have any, or could you comment a little bit perhaps about Indosat's sort of outlook for how you are going to work with partners like Indovision and iFlix going forward? I mean, it looks like you've just started to dip your toes in the water, early days, as you mentioned earlier. What do you see as the key next steps for Indosat? Having started a little bit in OTT SVOD with iFlix, and having taken a pretty significant landmark deal, I would characterize, with Indovision in traditional television.
So first, I think we are quite proud to be fairly innovative in different commercial models. As I tell my partner friends, you will not find a friendlier guinea pig to try a new commercial model.
Yeah.
Because let's not sort of pretend to fool everyone. The model is evolving so fast, we do not know what's going to work and going to work for which kind of content and which kind of customer. So today we have 4 or 5 different commercial models. I talked about the small fixed payment and the hard bundle model, which is what iFlix is.
Okay.
We have a model where small amounts of monies are paid by the customer to view small few hours of content, and then we take a distribution fee or a revenue share from that. That's the old VAS model.
Yeah.
Then we have a model where the customer perceives that the content is free, but the content provider gets a share of the data traffic generated.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's a, the so-called Web 2.0 model, where
Sure.
the monies flow from a different model. It flows from the operator back to the broadcaster, but the customer not paying anything for it.
Right. Yeah.
Well, he is, but from the data, but nothing
Yes,
else.
yeah,
And
fair
then we have an ad fund model as well for a certain category of content. So we have 4 different models which we're trialing today.
Yeah.
We are lucky that in Asia we are not under the same regulatory pressures on which sort of are inhibiting innovation in many of the Western markets. So we are given much more freedom to pursue different innovative models.
Okay.
As I said, many of these models will work for some content providers and will work for some customer segments, and others will not.
Okay. I mean, it does sort of occur to me that, Netflix did launch in Indonesia as part of their enormous global rollout towards the beginning of this year. Were you at all tempted to work with, or are you tempted to work with Netflix as well as iFlix? And it would also be interesting to hear your view on whether the Netflix proposition itself, do you feel it's suitable for the Indonesian market?
First, I think we should not forget Netflix is a huge brand. So when Netflix launched globally in the early part of the year, they were amongst the top apps downloaded in Indonesia for about a month.
Yeah.
So it is a very strong brand for a certain category of customer. They just have to, have a good mix of local content and international content for it to work successfully, and have the right partner. And I hope we are the right partner. But your question was, will you work with them? Yeah, we'll work with anyone who will be, with who we can create a win-win deal.
I think it's quite interesting. There's the possibility of some kind of evolved bundle involving, your data and perhaps a variety of third-party OTT services. Perhaps, dare I say it,
So I think I'll interrupt you, Ed. Data is one important part, right?
Yeah.
But it's not the only part. Often the partners that speak to focus so much on the data part, they forget the other pieces which help make an app or make a content model successful.
Yeah.
I think the one which is actually more important than just data is distribution.
Okay.
So in a market like Indonesia, actually any market, a lot of what the customer believes is good and what the customer downloads happens at the storefront in the shop.
Right.
So when the customer goes in to top up their prepaid model, if the guy in the shop says that why don't you try Netflix, I'll help you download it and has a great plan, the customer will do it.
Wow.
And I think that is one big differentiator telco has compared to any of the online-only models.
Yeah.
That's the first one. And the second one, which I think is equally important, is analytics. So we know a lot about our customers. More than I should talk in a large forum. But we know which customers are watching how much of video and when, how many of them have downloaded different kinds of video apps. We know their volume of consumption. So if there's a specific message to be sent to a specific customer, we know who to send it to, in what form, and at what time to make it more successful.
Wow.
So the average cost of an app download, and many of you guys must be from digital marketing. So the cost of an average app download in Southeast Asia is between $4 and $15 per app download.
Wow.
So it's not cheap.
Yeah.
And then between 10 to 50%, depending on how good the digital promotion was, the app downloads will convert to active customers. So your cost per app download could be anywhere between $15 to $100 for an active user. So that is a lot of money to get an active customer to come on.
Absolutely.
And where we can help is through the analytics, because that will bring the costs down. So there is data, which is very important.
Yeah, absolutely.
But equally important is the analytics and the distribution.
It's very interesting you talk about the way that you can leverage data to improve both your commercial performance and those of your partners. It was something that was touched on in a panel this morning. The chap from Nielsen was basically made exactly the same point, that, he believed that telcos perhaps should focus more on the data analytics side of their business rather than trying to pivot to being entertainment providers. What is your take on that? Is it an either-or proposition? Or?
Well, first, I don't think creating content is a specialist job. I don't think most telcos have that skill.
Okay.
Many telcos have tried, and many telcos have burnt a lot of money.
True.
I can't think of even one successful model.
BT Sport.
Okay, BT Sport, yeah. Okay, I can think of a few now. But there aren't that many well, they're not making the content, they're just shooting somebody else's video.
Sorry,
right?
yeah, I see what you mean. Yeah.
But creating your own content, I think, is a very different skill.
Okay.
At least this telco, which I work in, I don't think we have any ambitions, at least in the short to medium term, of ever becoming a studio. So we will work with partners.
Okay.
We will select the partners carefully
Mm.
and select and work with them to help them grow and help us grow. So our model is definitely partnership-based.
Right, okay. So I can understand you guys being a bit reticent about becoming a production house. But of course, we have seen an increasing number of telcos and operators becoming more active in content licensing, particularly around, everyone talks about Hollywood movies or sports rights as being, you must buy these, this is how you aggregate an audience. Have you guys any visibility on this? What do you, at Indosat, is this something that you're interested in?
So first, I think we know our spot. We have only 20% of the market.
Right,
Yeah.
okay.
So if you were to buy an exclusive content deal for sport, and the EPL, the Barclays Premier League, for example, went for 3 years, I think $90 million for 3 years.
Yeah.
And if you to allocate $90 million over 3 years to 20% of the market, that's a very expensive deal.
Yeah.
So we look at our numbers very carefully before we commit to large spend. I
Okay.
won't say we will never spend. All I'm saying is we look at numbers quite carefully. So we spent money on the Indonesian Football League this year. So we have spent money.
Okay.
But
yeah.
will we spend $90 million to buy a 3-year content deal? I don't know. Maybe we'll, but not right away.
Okay. So, what would you say to, say, a large, a content owner, whether it be a content owner for TV shows and movies, or perhaps a sports rights organizations who thinking to themselves, I would really like to grow my audience in Indonesia. What advice would you have for them? Is it right-sizing their pricing to the constraints of the market, or would it be something else?
The first thing I would say is, it's difficult to try to adopt a model from a Western market. So
Okay.
I'm talking of minimum guarantees over here.
Right.
So a minimum revenue guarantee model based on high ARPUs and few customers in a market where the model is going to be based on volume, it's going to be based on scale, and it's going to be based on either zero or low ARPU, or low monthly spend.
Okay.
So I would say the older models were created for a industry which was highly regulated. So there were 2 or 3 cable providers regulated, 1 or 2 satellite providers regulated, so a 5 broadcaster market, right? So that's
Yeah.
where the whole MG model came across.
Yeah.
The cellular and the fixed line, the broadband market is much more competitive. There are so many OTT players. It does not require licensing.
Yeah.
And they are typically given to a model where it's easy for people to buy very small amounts of data, and they can sign off very easily. So to
Right.
try to push a model from a different market and frankly a different era to a completely different situation, because the old model was made when no one watched videos on their phone. Everyone
Yeah.
watched them on large TV. Today,
Yeah.
for every 1 hour in Indonesia, if you look at connected homes, for every 1 hour watched on our base, I can tell you, because we also have a fixed line business.
Yeah.
For every 1 hour watched on iFlix on the big TV, they watch about 2.5 hours on some handheld device at home.
Okay.
So you already see, and Indonesia has been talked about as one of the markets where the online video market has really taken off at a much faster pace. But even
Absolutely.
other markets will see very similar trends. So we try to take a model from 10 years ago when there were no smartphones, everybody watched and 5 providers and large screens to a model today. I think that old model is totally irrelevant.
One thing which we always consider when we're looking at Southeast Asian entertainment markets is there does seem to be a relatively widespread problem around copyright infringement and illegal sources of video content. Is this something that you guys find a challenge at Indosat in trying to perhaps build more interest in entertainment spending over fixed and mobile networks?
So piracy is a challenge, but the way to and it's also, in some ways, it also helps educate the market. So it's sort of a mixed thing, right? So let's take Spotify. We were the launch partner of Spotify earlier in the year.
Yeah.
And the so-called good thing about piracy was everyone knew Western music.
Yeah.
So when Spotify came in, there was no need to educate the market. So there was already a market which was, and we're talking of many million customers who knew music.
Okay.
And what a company like Spotify helped do was take customers away from a piracy market to a streaming market. And what helps make the change is a price point. So if you were to go down the road to a mall and buy a CD with dubious quality music for, say, $2, okay, $2 too high, for 60 cents,
okay. Yeah.
and you can pay $3 and have an all-you-can-eat good quality music, many customers would stop paying for piracy and using an online service. So the price point will help move, and which is why players like, the SWOT players, I think will also help move the market away from piracy to more legit options. Of course, I think for video it's a little bit more difficult because there's a 1 year, 6-month window between when the movie gets released and it comes on an SWOT platform. So probably it's more difficult for video.
Sure.
But if the price points are right, I think at least a large proportion of the market will make that move.
I mean, I think one of the, just coming back to your point about the relatively low levels of ARPU that you're working with in Indonesia, which seems to denote very small amounts of headroom for entertainment spending or investment within that. One of the things that I've heard saying, I'm not sure I totally agree with it, but I'd be interested in your take, is that in this type of market, there should be much higher reliance on an ad-supported type model instead of the transactional or subscription models that we've been talking about. What's your opinion on that point of view?
So the text and picture model is totally ad-supported, right?
Yeah.
So every web page you view from Detik or Compass, one of the large news providers, is ad supported. I said we also have a ad-supported video model, but it is still early days. How much? Again, this is where the analytics comes in.
Okay.
So a 3-minute video will cost, say, about 12 cents or 14 cents to view in terms of data costs. So can the few-second pre-roll before the video starts support 12 cents? And you need to have very strong analytics for your ad to be worth more than 12 cents for it to be ad-supported. So,
and this is where your data comes in, presumably.
This is where the analytics come in, yeah.
Okay. So I guess...
Or compression, yeah. So, or you can have a compressed video. So I'm giving you high-def video.
Or
so
you can reduce the cost of
the video,
transport to the customer. So I guess just thinking about perhaps the next sort of year to 5 years in Indonesia, when you're thinking about the development of the mobile broadband market and how that's feeding into the development of entertainment spending in the Indonesian market. How do you see things developing? Are there any major trends that the attendees at this conference should be aware of? Any very big opportunities you're excited about?
It's quite amazing. Have you guys heard of a company called TasteMade?
Yes.
Yes. So do you know that Indonesia has, in the last 2 years, has become, from nowhere, become the second largest market for TasteMade?
Wow.
And what is the distribution platform? It's Facebook. So I think it's for all of us sitting in the room, including us here,
of course,
to see where customers are spending time on their mobile phones and maybe working on different distribution platforms. So Instagram or WhatsApp can be a distribution platform as well.
Absolutely.
Telcos, we can be a distribution platform. You can create your own distribution platform and get content from other parties. I think the market's there to be made, but the market's there to be made only if you look beyond the obvious model of trying to make money from customers. There are so many other ways. We talked about an ad-funded model here. TasteMade is an ad-funded model.
Absolutely, yeah. Very, very interesting. I mean, presumably, well, it's a very interesting model, especially how they drive distribution through social networking. You touched, Prashant, on a couple of very interesting things which have popped up in a couple of the sessions today, particularly around emerging video formats. So, you mentioned Facebook video. Obviously, social video in general is becoming more important. We're also seeing a lot of experimentation around Snapchat and Instagram video. I mean, it's a very dynamic area. When you see one of these services popping up and gaining in popularity at a very, very rapid rate, I mean, what does a company such as Indosat do? Do you just sit back and enjoy the data, or do you think, right, we need to ascend the value chain and start working with these guys, or what's your thought process around that?
As again, depends on who the customer is, but we don't want to sit back. Actually, the data will not drive itself.
Okay.
This year, we've been the fastest in the market in terms of data revenue growth.
Yeah.
Obviously, they're also the fastest in terms of data volume growth, but it hasn't happened on its own. So we have to work with partners, we have to work with distribution, and going forward, work more with analytics. So you talked about what next.
Yeah.
I think what next is going to be, we break down the base of 80 million into much smaller, more understandable customer segments, and have the most appropriate content partner and the most appropriate commercial model to target that customer segment. So the customer benefits and the partner benefits. Partner benefits because the costs go down.
Yeah.
We benefit because there's more take-up.
Yeah.
And the customer benefits because the customer gets the best content at the lowest cost.
Very interesting. So, I mean, I think as we're coming towards the end of our session now, when you're looking ahead, you mentioned that this is a very important time of the year, not just for Indosat, for many other companies when they're determining 2017 budgets and resource commitments. Obviously, you can't talk about anything proprietary, but is there anything you'd suggest that we look out for as a conference to what you guys might be up to in 2017?
So I said, you will not find a friendlier experimenting operator than Indosat.
Okay.
We are happy to do a lot of the heavy lifting to launch a service. We have worked very successfully with partners in the past, from larger brands like Google and Facebook to very small local brands which you haven't heard of. We, in fact, I also run a small VC fund where we have incubated a few local education and entertainment companies. So we have a full wide range of the ways we work with content partners. As I said, we are happy doing the heavy lifting. We are happy getting you out there. We are happy working with you to get your customers. So if you have an interesting idea, then I think, and you want to get into Indonesia, I believe you should get in touch with us.
Yeah, of course, all the while using your data.
Of course, yeah. That will help, yes.
Okay, I think Prashant, you've been extremely generous, both with your time and your insights. I hope you agree that it's been a very interesting session. I've certainly learned a lot about both Indonesia and Indosat. So please join me in thanking Prashant for participating in the session.
Yeah, thank you.